Welcome to the Snackscast. Today we're going to sit down and talk to somebody who has taken on the challenge of coaching and managing a rugby team after a long playing career. So hopefully you enjoy this episode with my right-hand man, Vinny Nitopi. This episode, I shamelessly convinced one of my buddies to come on the show because I think he has some important stuff to say about his transition from being a player. So without further introduction, can you introduce yourself?
Hey, thanks, Snacks. My name's Vinny Nitopi. Known Snacks here for, six years now. Met him through Coast Guard Rugby and just a whole bunch of evolution since.
Okay, so Coast Guard Rugby is where we met.
Yeah.
When we first met, what was your role?
So I was a player with Coast Guard Rugby. Back in my enlisted days, I was just another guy out there, kind of at the tail end of my career, but saw an opportunity to play for the service, and that was one of the big things that I wanted to get into when I joined. I said, you know what? Here's the Coast Guard. Here's rugby. I love rugby. I want to represent my country. And that's where Snacks and I met.
Okay. Or you and I met. You and I met. Okay. So what sort of rugby did you play before we met at the Coast Guard team?
Yeah, so before sevens, it was standard 15s. Played in college, played men's leagues.
Which college?
Started my rugby career at Southern Connecticut State University in New Haven, Connecticut. Did a couple years there. Transferred to the University of Tennessee. Got a taste for some good rugby and started to see the direction that this country was starting to go, and made national tournaments. So second year we made the Sweet 16. Mm-hmm. Following year we made the Elite 8. Ran into Cal Berkeley, and I was completely blown away by the level of rugby that was being played at the college level. Mm-hmm.
So you say you're blown away by the level of collegiate rugby when you went to Tennessee. How many years did you play at Tennessee?
So I played 3 years at Tennessee, 2 in Southern Connecticut.
Okay. When you were at Tennessee, did you have any foreshadowing or see down the line that you might become a coach or work in rugby or any of the things that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes? But did any of that stuff ever creep into your mind as a collegiate player?
Really, no. So, first and foremost, I was like, hey, I'm athletic. I'm going to play a sport right now. And when I left college, I was like, I'm going to keep doing this. I try not to let things that were important, such as work or, an extra social life or girlfriends, any of that stuff get in the way. Rugby kind of first and foremost. And that's what I did. After some of my buddies kind of hung them up, I just kept going. And, as I kept going, that's when I started thinking more and more about the other side, because at some point, you're not as fast, you're not strong. There's a new guy pushing a little bit harder, and at some point you gotta put him away, but not forever.
Yeah, you're right. We always kind of get to that point where you may want to not be as sore on Sunday morning, right, yeah, or take as long as trips because family and those things come in. So when you left Tennessee, where did you go play?
So I played in Nova, Northern Virginia, for a couple years. Okay. Changed jobs, picked up my life. I was kind of unhappy with the Northern Virginia area, so moved down to Southwest Florida and caught up with the Naples Hammerheads. Okay. So played down there. Again, made the Elite 8 my first year with them. It was one of the best teams I've ever been involved with. We just a good combination of people, like all at the right time, and we just did our thing.
Was that where you met Cam Dolan?
The next year I met Cam Dolan, yeah. First year out there, which was amazing.
Zulu.
Yeah.
It's funny that we've come a long way since those days.
Right.
There's teams not doing those anymore, but it is part of our tradition and our history. So it's kind of funny that you mentioned that you're doing those Zulus. And one of the first times I met Cam Dolan and then we started to get to know each other, he came to me at a camp and was like, hey, you know Vinny Nitopi? Yeah. And I was like, actually I do. Yeah, I do. He's one of my Coast Guard guys. So that's an interesting connection we have.
Small world.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about sort of what you're in. So we've gone from college to club. I know Nova to Florida, and then you ended up in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And then you joined the Coast Guard, correct? Let's talk a little bit about what was sort of the moment as a player, and I know we talked about the hanging the boots up thing or getting too old, but
Right.
what interested you about, like, what caught your interest to take a step further from being a player to sort of what you do now, right? And talk a little bit about what you're doing now and how that process sort of came about.
So after playing in Las Vegas, I was playing with Sin City, now Las Vegas Irish. And then I joined the Coast Guard, and when I first got into the service, I was kind of worried about getting hurt and, having to travel and transfer, and there were just a whole litany of issues why I decided, like, hey, I'm not really playing right now, and I had to kind of take a step back. So I did that, transferred a couple times, wound up back in Northern Virginia, funny enough. Found that I had some time on weekends. I was like, all right, let me get back into this. So I got back in, but I found that I couldn't be as committed, and like you said, the soreness kind of got in the way, and all these things started adding up. Well, I took a break. We had kids and whatever, but during that time, I was like, you know what? I still need to get this out, right? So played. I found out that the Coast Guard had the 7 side.
Right.
Got involved with that. Saw that there was a youth movement by my 2nd or 3rd year, and we started picking up some new guys, and guys that were up and coming, hungry. I saw these things that I had maybe 10, 15 years ago that not that I don't have it, but at some point you got to start making room for these guys and hey, how can I still help this club flourish and be there? So I started getting on with one of our other friends, JD. Right. So JD always was the club manager, and I was like, I really want to get involved with this. How do I stay connected? So JD started kind of handing stuff off, and I slowly took over the managerial role for the Coast Guard team. And I found that I was pretty good at, hey, logistics and how do I organize 30 people? How do we get a team together? Let's make sure we got airport runs done. What time do we eat? What time do we do this? And I just found some sort of like, hey, I can do this. This isn't so bad, and it keeps the team together, it keeps everything flowing. So I kind of took that, and when I was done kind of playing, I was like, oh, I still want to stay involved. How do I do this, locally now? Because Coast Guard, that's 2-3 times a year at most, and I have that connection, but it's not every day. It's not, throughout the year where you get to see these people face to face. So I found a club local to me, Prince William County Owls, and I got out there, and they're like, hey, you're out here. Can you play this weekend? And this is my first practice, and I was like, really? You want to play this weekend? You haven't even seen me, you haven't seen anything. They're like, well, we're going to be short guys, this, that, and the other thing. So I went out and ran with them a couple tournaments. Immediately broke my thumb playing first match. But I found out their coach had left, and I was like, you know what? This is a great opportunity. Here's a team. They don't have a coach. I'm not really looking to play as much as I used to.
Right.
So went and got my level 200. Traveled up to Boston on a weekend.
Yeah. Got
that taken care of, and jumped into the coaching role.
Would you say, what gave you the confidence to go, okay, I can play, but I think I'm better off in another role, right? I mean, your managerial skills are something that I think are world class in your organization, and keeping the guys on time. As a coach of the Coast Guard team, it's invaluable to me, right? So what gave you the confidence to go from player to manager than to just say, you know what, I'm going to try my hand at coaching? Like, what was the moment? I know you were like, this is an opportunity, but what gave you that confidence?
Just picking up stuff, over the years you just pick up all this knowledge. So I've been playing since I was 18 years old, and the game is totally changed. I mean, from day one to now, right? Right. And you can see some of the stuff that some of these guys were doing, and I was like, you know what, there's an opportunity here to teach stuff that I know, and there's no reason for me to try to do it as a player. So to deliver it as a coach and like take more of that leadership role, it gives me an opportunity to like get in front of people again. Right. So with the Coast Guard, moving from enlisted to officer, and I know this is kind of a weird combination, but I'm in front of people more, and I don't get a chance to do a lot of like public speaking or have to deliver information that's gonna direct people or teach people something. So I was like, how else can I do this? So I looked at rugby to kind of help me with my career. And I know it's a strange kind of connection, but they are kind of linked in the fact that you're leading people. So I looked at it as like that kind of opportunity. Like, I've had a little bit of it with the Coast Guard. Now I can do this every day or during these seasons. So it looked like a good chance to do it. And I felt comfortable standing in front of my own age group and peers. When I was a younger guy playing, especially in college, you have an adult basically coaching you. A bunch of kids, an adult. Yeah. You get to men's. Each club I went to was, here's an old boy. Here's a bunch of young men. Right. I get to this club, I got some older guys, got some younger guys, but
you're the older guy now.
Yeah, now I'm the older guy. There are a couple older guys that are hanging on. God bless them. But it felt like a good time to do it.
Okay. So in your process of becoming a coach, let's talk a little bit about sort of the lessons that maybe you've learned in the last couple of months. I know it's pretty recent that you've taken on this challenge. This last summer is when you came on board with Prince William County. What are some things that surprised you? Maybe you learned or you weren't necessarily prepared for, and you've worked through obviously a lot of stuff. But what are some of those lessons you've learned?
Yeah, so trust but verify is you can't say it enough. Yeah. Met a couple people. Hey, what'd you guys do last year? Hey, what do you know? What's the game plan? Collect all that information. Go out there. You base all your practice. You base your beginning of your season off everything you've kind of taken in and seen. Mm-hmm. Get out there, and it's like, well, we're gonna backtrack. We're gonna go. we're gonna move it back. So I guess I had like an assumption level. Mm-hmm. Going in like, well, if I'm at a certain level, most people probably are. I don't see myself as superior or like I've had this great coaching. I figured it's kind of a standard plane that most people get to.
Right.
Well, it's not always the case, and that was kind of not a hard adjustment, but it was, hey, I got to really scale back what I'm trying to do just to deliver. Hey, we got to get you from ground floor to floor one here. I'm trying to start 2-3 levels higher, and just had to scale things back.
Yeah, so I hear you saying sort of your expectations initially as a coach were a little higher than what they were in reality.
Absolutely.
And so what sort of things did you do to prepare yourself, right? Like, so you came in, you had some systems maybe you wanted to play or do, and you saw that you weren't quite at that level yet with the talent or athletes that you had. And not to say they're bad athletes, but they just maybe don't know what they don't know.
Yep.
So how did you work through developing your processes and developing your plan?
Sure. So the athletes weren't the problem. It was the knowledge. So the knowledge was more of the issue.
Right.
So the good thing about playing the level we're at, athletics can kind of hide some of that stuff.
Right.
So instead of trying to come up with these top level plays or moves that would take a little bit more practice or a little bit more execution, we kind of game plan towards, hey, these guys are athletic. How do we get the ball in their hands? And we work towards more of the athletic guys. And we tried to move some people into positions where they can make a play. Mm-hmm. So it was more of a, my game plan going in was one thing, but then I was like, hey, this is the talent I have. Let's kind of work towards the talent more so than the game plan or
make an adjustment according to what your strengths were.
Exactly. So let's empower these people that are here and make them make the decision, get the ball in the right guy's hands, rather than, hey, this is what I'm trying to force down your throats. I don't care if it doesn't work.
Okay.
Make it work. But
gotcha.
We backed it up and tried to find our guys that were the playmakers and go from there.
Okay. As a coach, what do you think your strengths are?
Game planning or practice planning, really. So I'm in a very transient area. Right. So with transient areas, and I'm sure there's other clubs that have this problem, where we have guys that are either coming and going every year. We have a lot of guys that are on like rotating shifts.
Right.
So to practice plan is you have to. You can't go in and try to wing things. I mean, just going in there and like having a game plan.
So do you use a script or a template?
I do. So I write out what I want to do.
Okay.
And based on the people that show up, either we have a practice for heavy groups or practice for light numbers.
Okay.
So I have to have a couple practice plans. I have, there's times where Tuesdays aren't very busy and Thursdays are. So, do I teach the same thing twice? So there's a lot of coaching through text, coaching through email.
Right.
When I signed up, I was like, hey, it's going to be a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday thing, no big deal. And now I'm finding like you got to stay engaged a lot more than I initially thought. I kind of saw what was going on in college. I kind of saw with some of my men's leagues. And I was like, hey, this seems like a pretty easy transition. I didn't realize all the behind-the-scenes kind of work that was probably taking place. Yeah. I found myself, I was pretty committed all the time. And not that some guys aren't committed, but, hey, schedule's in the way. Rugby doesn't pay the bills for everybody. So let's plan on what we got. Let's plan on what we got. And we'll just tie it all together some other way. And that seems to be the thing that's working.
Okay. Any other strengths you feel you have?
Yeah, so I moved around the pack a lot.
Right.
So I feel like I
played different positions.
Yeah,
okay.
1 through 8. So
right.
-2 because I can't bend the hips. It's horrible. But
okay.
But yeah, so I can pretty easily step in and say, hey, this is how we do this, and work with some of the newer guys. It's not hard to see like, hey, this is not a great position. Why don't we try this? So identifying a lot of the stuff, finding some of the guys that have played other positions in the back line. I'm not really a back, even though I want to be. Okay. I always wanted to be. I'll comb my hair nice, but it's not going to work.
So I hear you saying you're comfortable teaching the technical aspects of the forwards play.
Definitely.
Right, and that's pretty cool. Sometimes we forget how technical the forwards can be, right? We talk a lot about catch and pass and evade and tackles, but forwards play is a pretty technical work on the field. So if you're saying you were a forward, what would you say are some of the things you're trying to work on right now? We'll say weaknesses, for lack of a better term, because we always want to make those better and make them strengths. What are some of the things you're working on right now?
It seems like basic stuff to me, but maybe not to a lot of people. Just recently taught wheel. So teaching a wheel is a lot more complicated than
in the scrum.
Yes.
Okay.
So wheeling scrum, on purpose, not just going in there and kind of smashing heads and hoping it turns left, hoping it turns right. Like, hey, we have a play developed. How do we get some advantage gained? Yeah. So trying to teach a wheel to a group of people that have never done it on purpose. Okay. That's been a challenge because now instead of trying to teach one position how you do this and another position how you do this, I'm trying to teach 8 guys to get in unison, be under control, turn just slightly, not turn too much.
Right. So take the scrum to a certain level.
Right. Let's go 45. Let's not spin it all the way 90 or 180 or.
Okay. So that's in terms of team. What about you as a coach? What are some things you're working on as a coach, right? We heard a strength is your forwards technicalities, right? Or teaching the technical aspect. What as a coach are you trying to work on to get better at right now?
So I've been studying a lot of back line. Mm-hmm. I've played sevens, so thankfully that's transitioned pretty well to back line. Mm-hmm. But there are a couple more nuances. You have to defensively, especially having to kind of control like wings and fullback.
The back three.
Yeah, back three. It's again. I'm like, hey, these guys, they know what they're doing. Well, not necessarily. So covering on defense and who's talking and who's leading people when we have guys inserting or players involved in tackles. So I've been trying to study that more than forwards per se, and learning a lot of the new game plans. So you have 2-4-2s out there, the 1-3-3-1,
right? And
we saw it in person a couple weeks ago, and it was kind of eye opening for some of my new guys that haven't seen a lot of rugby or haven't seen a lot of higher level rugby.
Right. So
trying to pull that out and break film down, that's something I've really been working on, is breaking film down. Yeah, definitely. Because if you can point out the good and the bad and get guys to, or your players to recognize, like, hey, this was great. Like you came in this ruck and great job. Or hey, you came in this ruck and you basically stood there like a target. But when you can slow it down, you time stamping, you show people, it's a lot easier to explain. people understand what you're talking about when you go to practice the next time, and you're like, hey, we're going to work on this because you did this great. Show me again. Or, hey, this wasn't so good. This is how you should probably try it.
Yeah.
So that's been one of the biggest things that I started doing.
Okay.
And I think it's helped us throughout the practices, made our practice a lot better, made our game plan a lot better.
Okay. So we've talked a little bit about your coaching and managing. You have an event side as well, right?
Yep.
And sort of we're working an event together here. That's why we're in the same place for once in a while. So we've talked about coaching, we've talked about managing. In terms of events, if you could give some takeaways, right? Like some things you've learned from there, and we'll kind of close out with that, right? So what are some things you've learned working events that maybe the general public could take some things away from that maybe you took with you when you went coaching or managing? Sure.
So, gosh, events. I've done sevens events. I've done some 15s, international events.
Right.
All the behind the scenes work. So you as a fan or anybody's a fan shows up to a game. What do you see?
Right.
You see the field all set up. You see the players come out. Everything seemingly goes off without a hitch.
Right.
For the most part.
Right.
What you don't see is all the behind the scenes work. Ice baths getting filled, balls getting pumped up.
Right.
Timing, so much timing. It's incredible the amount of timing that goes into any event, let alone a doubleheader 15s match, a sevens tournament, a tripleheader weekend. So
right.
There's a lot of coordination and a lot of logistics involved, which is something again like a casual fan or somebody in the stands may not notice.
Right. So would you say kicking off on time is important?
It is. It's something. If the kickoff doesn't go off on time, it's not just the stadium that's involved. There's a TV truck in the background, basically furious with you if those guys don't run out of tunnel at the right time.
Yeah.
So there's a lot at stake. There's money involved. There's people involved. There's all sorts of people pulling the strings. So timing is super important.
Timing is super important. All right. Well, we'll finish up with that, Vin. I really appreciate you coming on the Snackscast. I know you don't think you have a lot to say. I don't either, but I think there's some great takeaways in there from your transition as a player to a coach to manager to event person and a Coast Guard officer. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Tell Nat and Owen and your beautiful wife Becca that I said hello. We'll FaceTime them later. It'd be awesome.
Absolutely.
So with that, anything to close out with?
Yeah, if you're one of those people that's involved with the game now, make connections. That's one of those things that I feel like has carried me not only through rugby but even in the Coast Guard. Getting anything you do, make connections.
Yeah.
You never know who you're gonna cross paths with again. You never know who's gonna be working somewhere. You might reach out. It's very simple to say hello. It's very simple to keep in contact. But can't stress enough. Make a connection. Find somebody that's doing something you want to do. Talk to them. How do you get involved? Just keeping people's ears, you'll get to where you want to be.
Sweet.
So,
all right, Vin. Well, thanks again, and that's it for the Snackscast. We'll see you on the next episode.